Welcome to the Magic Half Hour with me, Dan the Wizard. Our topic this week is graffiti, the medium of choice for hooligans and hate criminals everywhere. Every day across the globe, artists are taking spray cans to walls to share their artistic vision and express themselves publicly. There are no rules to graffiti, only what you can pull from your mind brain and translate into paint. With such freedom comes a wide spectrum of results. On one end, beautiful, masterful art with a message, and on the other end, racist garbage. This week, we take a walk along that spectrum as we explore the world of the graffiti art style. So what is graffiti? Graffiti requires a vision first and foremost. Some visions require many hours of planning and hard work to create a complete piece with incredible detail. Other visions require a Sharpie and a knowledge of naughty words. Next, you need a purpose. Why that wall? Why those words? For most graffiti writers, it boils down to availability and a desire to put their name on something. Optionally, you need a slick name, an alias you use in your art so as not to lead the cops straight to you. Let me introduce you to Daryl McRae, aka Cornbread, the first graffiti writer and the father of the art style. His purpose was simple: love. Gross. Cornbread first tagged in 1965 to win the affection of a girl he had a crush on. He sprayed "Cornbread loves Cynthia" all over Philadelphia. Cute. Cornbread was hooked on his newfound activity and continued to tag his name all over Philly. He would go on to make iconic works such as tagging a jet that belonged to the Jackson 5 and an elephant at the Philadelphia Zoo. Cornbread was the first, but he didn't popularize the style. That distinction belongs to a man in New York who went by the name Taki183. Taki from the Greek spelling of his name Demetrius, and 183 from his street in Washington Heights. Taki was not the first writer in the Big Apple, but he did bring the culture into the public eye when in 1971, the New York Times published an article about him titled "Taki183 Spawns Pen Pals." Graffiti exploded in New York. Hundreds of people copied the style, and thus the competitive element of graffiti was born. Writers looked for bigger and badder ways to gain notoriety in the art scene. Competition is ingrained in graffiti. It pushes the art forward and leads to better pieces. This competition spawned our next major shift in the style: softies. The big, bold, and beautiful way to make your tag pop. The softie style uses bubble letters, which are the most commonly known style of graffiti. It's hard to go anywhere in an urban setting without seeing a few examples. New York artist Phase 2 is credited with pioneering bubbles in the mid-70s. Phase 2 also gives us our first link between graffiti and hip-hop. Phase would create flyers for shows in the Bronx and often create art live at them. Rounding out our quartet of graffiti influentials is Jean-Michel Basquiat, who gives us Samo style in 1977. Instead of using aliases and detailed art, Samo strips graffiti to its basics, using simple line drawings and short poetic phrases. Basquiat took a different path with the attention his art gained. Instead of remaining anonymous, like most other taggers, Basquiat used the notoriety to transition into mainstream art, eventually becoming famous for his work. Basquiat retired from graffiti in 1980 by writing a simple "Samo is dead." As these great legends brought graffiti closer and closer to the mainstream, a new wave of artists emerged that rocketed the style into a pop culture mainstay. Black Lorat, who started the stencil style used by many modern high-profile artists and was one of the first to see his art widely displayed in galleries. Banksy, who took stencil style and made it into one of the most recognizable styles in the world. Mr. Brainwash combined the new stencil style with the old writing techniques and turned it into amazing murals. David Cho, who did a mural in Facebook headquarters in 2005 in exchange for $60,000 in stocks, now worth over $200 million. These are the icons of graffiti who took it from the alleys of the Bronx and turned it into a multi-million-dollar industry. Graffiti is the essence of free public expression, and with that always comes the D-bags who shouldn't be expressing their ideas freely or publicly. This is that other side of the spectrum.
Right now, hate crime detectives with Denver police are investigating a possible hate crime at church in the city, Beth Abraham. The pastor at the church noticed swastikas painted on the synagogue yesterday. When DPD came out to investigate today, officers found a person spray painting items inside the building.
For as long as graffiti has been around, bad people have used it to write bad things. But that's true of any form of expression. So where does the blame lie for graffiti being used in a negative way? On the artist or the art form? For most people, it comes down to graffiti being labeled as vandalism rather than art, implying that it is always done with negative intent. But where is the line between vandalism and art? Is this vandalism or art? What about this boot? What about this bench with tentacles on it that gives me nightmares? Point being, it is entirely subjective. Maybe not in the eyes of the law, but to the individual, it is. If you love graffiti, you'll probably point to the great artists who break conventions and created everlasting impressions on the world. If you hate it, you'll probably point to the culture of acceptance those artists created that allowed assholes a medium to spread hate. That's our show for the week. Join me next week as I discuss skateboarding and former Prime Minister Stephen Harper joins the show. Bye now.